Alright guys, what's up? We are back with another video on the Civic. So, today we're going to talk about a quick overview, because I keep getting blown up in either YouTube, Instagram, about, one, why did I go with the D15B non-vtec motor, two, what all did I have to do to go from the B7 motor to the D15B motor. If you don't know, the D15B is the Japanese version of, basically it's a Japanese D-series motor. This one, the D15B does come in a VTEC version, but this is the non-VTEC version. It was also a carbureted version, which obviously I used the B7's intake manifold, which is fuel injection, and there's no mechanical fuel pump. But we'll get into that in a second. Basically this whole video is going to be a quick rundown, how to swap it out, go from the B7 to the D15B. I can give you guys a quick idea on how to run VTEC if you're going to run the VTEC solenoid. There is already two wires pretty much pre-wired for VTEC in the main harness, but the ECU is not going to, you're still going to have to get another ECU. It should be plug and play if you run like the, I want to say it's the later models, Civic SI's ECU, or the P28 ECU, I want to say it is. It should be all plug and play, but then you're still going to have to run the wires to the VTEC solenoid on top of the, right by the head. So, overall, I am going to make another video on this car. Basically, just a quick, semi-quick video on if you should ever buy one of these. Like, let's say you want to get into the car world, and you know the Hondas are like usually like the first pass before you jump into your next lineup of cars, whether it's Mustangs, whether it's Chevys, whether it's, you name it. It's basically like usually the tuner cars are usually gateways into something else. So you got the guys that start with Civics and they go to Germans, or you guys, the guy that start from Volkswagens, turn into imports, something along those lines. But let's get into this. So in order to do this swap, and honestly the swap was pretty straightforward, you guys. I can't even explain enough how simple it actually was. It's actually kind of refreshing, considering a lot of the other cars I have are not this simple and cheap. On top of that would be probably the main benefit here, would be how cheap these things are. Obviously this didn't come with it, I added this. There's also the rear bar to match this one, along with the K-tune ground wires there, another transmission. Alright, so let's jump into this. So this is the D15B motor. So you can always reference it by the casing number right here on the front of the motor. It's a stamp, D15B. The motor that was in this was a D15B7. So with this is a mechanical setup, so there's a block off plate that was already on the motor, so I just left it alone. Basically blocks it off because it is fuel injected, fuel rail injection. But all you had to do to swap this thing out, and it was pretty straightforward. Obviously unplug all the connections, vacuum lines. You can or cannot take the manifold off if you want. I left it on just to ease. Obviously you're going to take the air box off, disconnect all the power, disconnect the fuel lines, like I said, all the vacuum lines, all the harnesses. I did it in a weird way. I basically disconnected it from both sides and left the harness attached to the motor. You could just disconnect it from one side, unroute it, and then overhang it onto the other side of the car. I just left the harness with the engine and then swapped the harness over to the new engine. You will have to unbolt the headers downpipe, or you can leave the headers attached and just disconnect the downpipe down there. Obviously you're going to have to disconnect this brace, disconnect it from there, loosen up the mounts, which are right here, going through the side, going through this side. You can take the whole mount off, or you can disconnect it from right here, from these points. I left the top timing cover off so I could actually watch timing marks, because it's an all new belt, water pump, all that good stuff. When I did do the swap, I tried to make it as reliable as possible. This motor, when I bought it, the guy said it had about 65,000 miles on it. The compression test was at 108 190 psi per cylinder, so it was even all across the board. So I went with it, and so far it's been solid for the last, well, about 5,000 miles now. I haven't had the car very long. I do already plan on swapping the motor out, because the D15B motor, although it's cool and all to have the car running, it's lacking in performance, in any kind of performance, that is. I could just slap a turbo on it, but I heard the D series motors, they can handle boost, but if you do too much, it'll just blow them. And honestly, I paid $300 for the motor itself, which seems pretty steep to me for just a D series motor, but honestly, the way it's been running, it's been worth it. And to be fair, for the guys that have been following this channel for a while, know that I have the Genesis currently being built, and this motor, the whole motor minus the intake manifold and headers, cost me $300. Just the internals, just the engine internals for the Genesis have already ran me $6,000. So just keep that in mind, you guys, because this Civic it'll blow your mind. If you're from another car world where your car is like $1,000 for a tune on like ethanol or something, this will blow your mind how cheap these cars actually are to build. So I see why people do them, and they are fun, as long as you can get like all the small bugs out, like the creaking interior, which is usually just plastic pieces. But it's definitely a fun platform. Once you do all that, you will have to pop the axles out of the so you have to basically obviously you're gonna take the wheels off, take the axle nuts off, kick off the axles, pop them out of the transmission down there. You can take the whole transmission. All these transmissions are interchangeable with the D series, so when I popped this one off, I did redo clutch and pressure plate. I didn't do a flywheel, but I should have. All I did was swap the flywheel. Basically I popped it off, and then I don't even understand why I popped it off, but I popped it off, and you basically put it back on with ARP studs. Went with the new slave cylinder. Basically try to make this thing as reliable as possible, honestly. After that, once you pick the axles out, you will have to disconnect the shift linkage. There's a little pin in there. By the way, that pin sucks. There is a tool to get it out. Don't know the name of it, but there is a tool. I'm hoping another Honda guy comments the tool's name down below. It's like a little pin, and you have to basically smack it out. The other one's just a bolt. Go figure. But yeah, honestly, all you gotta do is jack the car up. You'll get the car up. It's probably gonna be pretty high off the ground, but the motor will slide right out. Motor and transmission slide right out. Slide the new setup back in. You could either, I used a transmission jack, which is basically it worked perfectly for both. It was rated for, it was way overrated for pounds, so it definitely was able to contain all that. Lifted it right up, bolted the engine mounts back up and the transmission mount up, and then basically start reconnecting everything. If you have an issue with it starting, grounds, check your grounds. I can't say that enough. So I have the old ground up here. This thing is old and dingy, as you can tell. So then I went with the K-tuned ones. They were telling me to go ahead and hit one with on the valve cover, one on the transmission to basically the chassis. And obviously you have your main battery one, which leads to right by the strut tower. Because at first it wouldn't start, and it was because it was getting a bad connection back here on the thermostat housing. Right back there, those two little wires with spades on them, those were all corroded and stuff, so I had to pop them off and go ahead and sand them down. But they work great now, starts up every time. But definitely super solid. Now, if you're gonna run a vtec setup, all you have to do is go over to your main harness, and in your harness you'll see there's a prong with two wires. The back side has two wires, the front side doesn't. You basically just have to pin it and then run the wires to the vtec solenoid. There's definitely more of a in-depth breakdown on Google or Reddit or probably somewhere. There's definitely, I know there's a lot. Basically just run the wires but then you will have to swap out the ECU. ECU is going to be back behind this little carpet for the ECU is set. Basically, it's just three connectors. Plug them in. They only go in one way. So here, this is how you can check your codes. I didn't put it back up yet. But that's pretty much it. Now, if you do run a VTEC setup, you're gonna have to either get the ECU that the engine came with, which should be, if it's gonna be a VTEC D series, it's probably gonna be a P28 ECU. This one, I want to say, was a P06 ECU. It's been a while since I've actually looked at it, but I don't remember the ECU like that. I know with the new setup I'm gonna be running, it is gonna be, I'm probably just gonna cave and do a B18. Probably just a B18B bottom end with probably either the GSR or the ITR B18 VTEC head. So it'll be an LS VTEC for the Honda guys. That seems like the most cost effective. I was looking at the B18C1 and B18C5 motors. The C5 is the ITR, C1 would be the more like USDM GSR motor from the Integros. They seem pretty steep for what they are. They seem about it. They jump all over the place, but I've seen them for sale for either $3 grand or $6 grand, or I've even seen them for $8 grand fully built. And it's like, I've already priced out the parts, and I know the parts aren't that expensive, so that's definitely a tax up on that end. But honestly, swapping this stuff over is straightforward, very, very straightforward. So yes, you can do it. Like I said, I did it in the month of February and in Pennsylvania, where it was like 20 degrees outside. It was not fun, I can promise you that. It kind of sucked. But it was kind of like a emergency effort to do, because I bought the car and literally it blew up. So there was $400 to have it towed back to my house because the car was blown apart on the side of a highway. So that sucked. After spending the $4,500 for the car, the guy wanted $5 grand. I talked him down $500, but it looks like he kind of got me on that deal because the car blew up 15 minutes later. And yes, I did check it before I left. It had oil in it. So I don't know what the hell happened with it, but it kind of sucked. But overall, every part I bought for this is actually fairly cheap. I think all in all, with all this stuff added in, I went with the new fuel filter, new distributor. That distributor costs us damn near as much as the motor did. The distributor was like $300, which is nuts when you actually think about the fact that you bought a whole motor versus a distributor. But it's ironic because you need the distributor for it to run. So they kind of got you on that aspect. But overall, it was cheap. I think in total, it's probably less than $1,500 for the whole setup, and that's with me buying all these extra parts like the bars, the tower brace, the rear tower brace, the intake, the exhaust. I won't even add that in there because the exhaust was definitely way more expensive. The Greddy SP swap cap back, that was actually like $800. That was actually pretty expensive. And the wing, this was only $5, which isn't really bad. I was gonna go with the Cybin wing, but the Cybin wing was like $800. And then you have the like I said, you got the Greddy cap back, which is actually pretty nice. And then, like I said, I still have not figured out what brace that is, or the rear control arms. I have no idea which ones they are. But yeah, that's going to be a quick little overview of this. If you guys do have questions on how to do it, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So, but if you do have any questions, don't be afraid to ask in the comments. I'm sure me or one of the other Honda guys will definitely more than likely be able to help you out, because these things are like Legos, like everybody says. They're super easy and most of the parts are interchangeable. But alright, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Stay tuned, and like I said, I'm gonna drop another video on whether or not to buy one of these and like the pros and cons of it, whether it be how much they're charging for them nowadays or the parts aspect of them, all that. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.